Hey, welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're cracking open a really fascinating book, Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. And its main idea? It's a total shock to the system. It says that when it comes to being good with money, what you know matters way less than how you act. So let's get right into it. To kick things off, let's look at a tale of two very real, very different people. On one side, you've got this high-flying finance exec. I mean, the full package. Harvard MBA, a star at a top firm, a 40 under 40 winner, living in a mansion with, get this, 11 bathrooms. And on the other side, a guy who spent his life fixing cars and sweeping floors, lived in the same tiny two-bedroom house forever, and just loved to chop wood. So here's the million-dollar question, or in this case, the $8 million question. Based on everything society tells us about success, which one of these guys do you think died a multimillionaire? I guarantee you, the answer is not what you think. To see how this is even possible, we're going to walk through 5 huge ideas from the book. First, we'll get the full story on our genius and our janitor. Then, we'll dig into why money is a soft skill, not rocket science. We'll look at the twin forces of luck and risk, the huge difference between getting rich and staying rich, and finally, why it's all about playing your own game. All right, let's really dive into these two stories because they're both completely true. The lives of Richard Fiscone and Ronald Read perfectly set the stage for everything else we're about to talk about. So, first up, Richard Fiscone. I mean, this guy had it all on paper. The fancy degree, the amazing career, everyone in his field looked up to him. He built this palace of a house where the monthly bills alone were over $90,000. But to pay for all of it, he took on a mountain of debt. And when the 2008 financial crisis hit, boom, he was wiped out. Totally. He ended up in front of a bankruptcy judge saying, I have no income. And then you have Ronald Read, a man who fixed cars at a gas station and swept floors at JCPenney. But here was his secret weapon. For decades, he quietly saved what little money he could and just bought blue chip stocks. And he never got fancy. He just waited. He let his money work for him year after year, letting that simple magic of compounding do its thing. So you know where this is going. When Ronald Read passed away in 2014, this quiet janitor left behind a fortune of over $8 million. He left most of it to his local hospital and library. So how on earth did this happen? The janitor ends up a philanthropist, and the finance genius goes broke. It had nothing to do with intelligence. It was all behavior. Ronald Read was patient. Richard Fiscone was greedy. Simple as that. And that story brings us right to the heart of this book. And honestly, it's a total game changer for how you should think about your own finances. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about how you behave. This quote right here just flips everything we've been taught upside down. We tend to think about finance like it's physics or math, with these concrete rules and formulas. But Housel's point is that it's not. It's actually a lot more like psychology. It's messy, it's emotional, and it's all about what's going on inside our own heads. And this really shows you just how weird and unique the world of money is. I mean, think about it. Is there any other field where a total amateur, someone with zero formal training like Ronald Read, can get dramatically better results than a top-tier, highly educated expert? No way. A janitor can't do heart surgery. An amateur can't design a stable skyscraper. But in investing, it literally happens all the time. And that's what the psychology of money is really about. It's not about learning complex Excel models. It's about mastering you. It's about having the patience to sit still and let time do the work. It's about taming that little voice of greed that tells you to take crazy risks. And it's about controlling the panic and fear that makes you want to sell everything at the absolute worst moment. Okay, so let's build on this idea by looking at 2 massive forces that we almost always get wrong: luck and risk. We love to build stories around individual skill and effort, but the truth is, the world is way more random than we like to admit. Just look at Bill Gates. Of course, he's a genius and worked incredibly hard. No one denies that. But his entire journey kicked off with a 1 in a million stroke of pure luck. Back in 1968, he just happened to go to Lakeside School, which was pretty much one of the only high schools on the planet that had a computer. Without that happening, right then, who knows if there would even be a Microsoft? Now, at that same school, Gates had a best friend named Kent Evans. Gates himself said Evans was even smarter than he was, and the two of them were dead set on conquering the world together. But just before they graduated, Kent was killed in a mountaineering accident. It was a complete fluke, a 1 in a million tragedy. You see, luck and risk are twins. They're two sides of the same coin. They're the reality that our lives are guided by forces outside of our control. You can't just praise Bill Gates' success as 100% skill without also acknowledging that Kent Evans' failure was 100% risk. It's the exact same force, just pointing in opposite directions. All right, this next idea is so important, but it's something we almost never talk about. We are obsessed with the idea of getting rich, but we completely forget that staying rich, that's a whole different ballgame. Getting rich usually involves taking big risks, being optimistic, and really putting yourself out there. But staying rich requires the total opposite. It requires humility. It requires a healthy fear that everything you've gained could be lost in an instant. It's about understanding that the luck that helped build your fortune can turn around and destroy it just as quickly. And this quote from billionaire investor Michael Moritz just nails that staying rich mindset. His firm, Sequoia Capital, is one of the most successful venture capital firms ever. And their secret? It's not about being smarter than everyone else. It's paranoia. It's operating under the assumption that past success means nothing for the future, and that just surviving is the top priority. At the end of the day, the goal isn't just to get the highest returns possible. The real goal is to be financially unbreakable, so you can stick around long enough for compounding to work that slow, powerful magic. Good investing isn't about hitting home runs. It's about getting pretty good returns that you can sustain for a very long time. So, how do we actually use all this in our own lives? Well, it all starts with a very simple but profound idea. No one is crazy. What you do with your money makes total sense to you, but it might look absolutely insane to me. And why is that? It's because our life experiences are completely different. Someone who grew up poor is going to think about risk and reward in a totally different way than the son of a wealthy banker. The author makes an incredible point. Your personal experience with money makes up maybe 1/1000% of what's happened in the world, but it accounts for like 80% of how you think the world works. And we got to give ourselves a break because we're all beginners at this. Modern finance is brand new. The 401k plan we all rely on, it basically didn't exist before the 1980s. The index fund, the 70s. We've had literally thousands of years to figure out farming, but only a few decades to learn how to deal with retirement accounts and credit cards. It's no wonder we're not perfect at it. And that's exactly why your goal shouldn't be to become some perfectly rational, cold-hearted robot. The goal should just be to be pretty reasonable. Don't chase the strategy that looks best on a spreadsheet. Pick the strategy that actually lets you sleep at night, because that's the one you'll be able to stick with for the long haul, and that's the only one that actually works. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last really powerful idea from the book. We see someone driving a Ferrari and think, wow, they're so wealthy. But Housel argues that's not wealth. That's just spending. True wealth is invisible. It's the money that you haven't spent. It's the cars not bought, the diamonds not worn. It's the assets in an account that are buying you freedom and options and control over your own time. So that's the question I want to leave you with. If wealth isn't just about having stuff, but about having the freedom to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today, then what does being truly wealthy actually mean to you? Thanks for joining us.